Take, for example, the case of Pam Reynolds.
It was not a real pleasant thing to see. I looked like what I was, dead.
When we return, how can Pam describe with startling accuracy the details of her own brain surgery? Pam Reynolds, a 44-year-old composer from the Atlanta area, has an incredible story to tell. While undergoing brain surgery, she says she left her body and actually watched her own operation. She describes the procedure in such vivid detail that it seems to defy scientific explanation.
When I came out of the body, there was no pain, no worry, no care. I looked down at my body. I knew it was my body. I didn't like looking at the body. That bothered me. But it was a wonderful, wonderful feeling to be free of it.
In 1991, Pam is diagnosed with an aneurysm, an enlarged blood vessel in her brain that's threatening to burst.
I had excruciating headaches. I went to my physician. He ordered a CAT scan, and they found the big aneurysm. I was beginning to leak, which is a sign of rupture. And had it ruptured, the outcome would have been certain death.
Because the aneurysm is deep within her brain, any surgery would be extremely dangerous. Pam's best chance for survival is an extraordinary procedure performed by Dr. Robert Spetzler of the Barrow Neurological Institute in Phoenix. As seen in this similar operation, Spetzler starts by cooling the body down to a point where he can actually stop the heart from beating.
When you get down to temperatures of 20 degrees centigrades in the 60s of Fahrenheit, you can drain the blood out of the body so that you can operate in a field in which that large balloon can actually collapse.
Once the aneurysm, that large blood-filled balloon, collapses, Spetzler clips it off, preventing it from growing back. Then the body is warmed and the patient recovers, it is hoped, with no negative effects. In Pam Reynolds' case, it is this unusual operation that she says she observes during her near-death experience.
And the last memory I had was of being wheeled down the hall. I began to feel a sensation, a tingling at the top of my head, and I all of a sudden popped out the top of my head.
Pam says she now finds herself high above the surgical table, where she sees the doctors using a long-handled device.
It looked like my electric toothbrush, if you can imagine the handle on my electric toothbrush.
Well, this is what is called the Midas Rex drill, and it is pretty much what Pamela described. And it's sort of in a toothbrush form. It is a saw that's used routinely in neurosurgery, and it's not something that is visible as you're coming into the operating room.
The fact is, the saw is only removed from its sterilized container after Pam has been under anesthesia for more than an hour. Dr. Spetzler says there is no way she could have seen it before the surgery began, nor afterwards. But Pam's remarkable description doesn't stop there.
At one point, I heard a female voice distinctly say, "We have a problem. Her veins and arteries are too small." It was a female voice, and I believed at the time that it was the cardiologist's voice. And it turned out to be exactly that.
The cardiac surgeon is indeed a woman, Camilla Mikan, who did have a difficult time connecting blood vessels in Pam's leg to the heart machine. Pam says she had not met Dr. Mikan before her surgery and had no idea she would have a female cardiac surgeon. Pam's extraordinary experience is just one of many cases where an experiencer recounts accurate details that occur while they're unconscious. Dr. Michael Sabom, an Atlanta cardiologist, has compared the descriptions of 71 cardiac procedures by patients who reported out-of-body experiences with those who did not.
The people who said they watched their resuscitation from an out-of-body near-death experience gave me rather remarkably accurate visual pictures of what was going on in the room at the time that could later be documented as being accurate. I could find no other way that they would have known about it unless they had actually seen it from a point separated from their physical body.
But skeptics claim that even though patients are under anesthesia, they can unconsciously hear what is happening during surgery.
A lot of times in surgery, when you are under, you are not completely under. And this is a big problem for anesthesiologists. They have to make sure the guy is really under. Because a lot of people, they're lying there and they're aware of what's going on, but they can't say anything and they're terrified. So now if the person's not completely under, he hears this and then recalls it later as part of this near-death experience.
You might be able to make a case for that during the first couple of minutes of induction, but not after that. After that, you are in a very deep anesthetic state. And in this particular case, you are in the deepest anesthetic state that's possible.
Not only that, during Pam Reynolds' operation, there is equipment used to help monitor brain function that is placed in her ears, which creates a loud clicking sound.
The evoked potential, which is the clicking in the ear, is a very, very robust signal. And then you've got to remember you're under multiple layers of drapes. I think it'd be impossible to hear a conversation.
Pam says that her near-death experience continues as she feels herself drawn away from the operating room towards a brilliant white light.
When I was out of the body, I had a distinct physical sensation, a pulling from the abdominal region just above the belly button, and I saw a tiny, tiny little pinpoint of light, as if it were way far away. And I went toward the light, and as I began to get closer and closer and closer, I started to discern my grandmother. I started to see her, and she came to me, along with an uncle.
But as in so many other near-death experiences, Pam is stopped before she can enter the light.
I wanted to go into the light, but they wouldn't allow me to do that. There was a time when I realized it was time to return to the body, and my uncle took me back through the dark vortex tunnel-looking place to the body. And I did want to go back. I had my children. I did want to go back.
Pam is then back inside the operating room, looking down again on the table.
And I saw them defibrillate me. I saw the body jump. And when I came into the body, my body did this, and I knew it. I felt it.
Remarkably, records from the surgery indicate that it did take a jolt from the paddles to resuscitate Pam's heart. Pam Reynolds' descriptions of her brain operation in such precise and accurate detail pose questions that remain difficult to answer.
Although I have trouble explaining what happened to Pamela, I think what she has related so quickly after surgery was remarkably precise as to some details that went on to surgery, so that my own perspective on it, that I can't explain it, but I'm certainly not all-knowing enough to say it didn't happen.
And most near-death experiencers, even those who claim they've been to hell, say they now view death differently too.
If death is the worst thing that happens to us, what an incredible thing. If at the end of our lives this is what's going to happen to everyone, I don't see the problem. I really don't get it. I fear pain, but I don't fear death. No.
Another thing that we can say for sure is that people who go through this have no more fear of death, because they realize that when it comes to them, this will be a passage into some other kind of reality.